When I started this channel, I made a promise to myself that there were some things I would never do. I swore I would never use my platform to start drama with other creators. I swore I would never use it to scam people out of money or take shady sponsors. And I swore I would never, ever, under any circumstances, talk about anime.
NANI?!
Tonight, I have failed to live up to my own standards. Further proof you should kill your idols. Because tonight, I want to tell you about a magical restaurant and the lessons it contains for those of us who want to build a better world. Isekai Shokudou, or Restaurant to Another World, was originally a young adult manga-style novel written by Junpei Inuzuka and illustrated by Katsumi Inami in 2015. It was later adapted into an animated series in 2017, and that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. The show concerns a restaurant in modern-day Tokyo called Western Restaurant Nekoya. Monday through Friday, the restaurant functions just how you'd expect your local neighborhood diner to. Every Saturday, though, something interesting happens. The doorway to the restaurant appears in a magical fantasy world full of elves, dragons, beastmen, and demons. It turns out, elves, dragons, beastmen, and demons freaking love our non-fantasy foods. Can't get enough of this stuff. As such, many of these fantasy denizens become regular patrons of the restaurant, eagerly waiting for Saturday to roll around so they can enjoy beef stew, pork katsu, spaghetti with meat sauce, and ice cream parfait. In fact, the food is so good that the restaurant functions as almost a kind of demilitarized zone where hostilities and rivalries are suspended briefly so that everyone can have their fill. I haven't seen every episode of the show yet, and I'm not a huge anime guy, so a lot of the genre conventions and cultural references are probably lost on me. But after watching a few episodes, something kept jumping out at me. In nearly every episode that I've seen, the main plot of the episode is that somebody shows up to the restaurant for the first time, orders something, takes a bite, and then has a food orgasm. Whether it's a demon girl, a shape-shifting dragon, a noodle merchant, or a wandering swordsman, there seems to be no conflict or drama, just people losing their mind at how good the food is. So far, the biggest tension in the show has been an episode where all the patrons get into a 10-minute argument about which kind of sandwich is the best. And then at the end, they all try each other's sandwiches. But more importantly, in nearly every episode that I've seen, the head chef, known only as Tenshu, gives food away for free to people who need it. And for the characters who've become paying customers, almost all of them remember a time that Tenshu fed them for free to welcome them to his restaurant. On the surface, the quality of the cooking is what attracts such devotion in the regulars. But as the show goes on, a deeper truth is revealed. People feel warm and loyal to those who feed them and show them hospitality. Now, when I say that, you might be thinking, well, duh, what other mind-blowing wisdom nuggets do you have for us tonight, Phil? And yeah, this is basic stuff, but I've been watching the show at the same time that I've been going through a new life chapter with my daughter. Preschool. This summer, we decided to enroll my 3-year-old in a local preschool so she could, meet other kids and learn how to function outside the house. Which is great, but this is the first time that we've ever had to let strangers watch Lilith. So it was a really big deal finding a preschool for her. For one, we're not rich, so finding a place we could afford was a major factor. But more importantly, finding a place we could trust our only child to was huge. Sure, we could ship her off to Slick Eddie's Kid Corral for $5 a day and just hope that Slick Eddie puts some water in her cage. But going lowest bidder on this one didn't quite seem like the right move. Guess which kind of organization had the most affordable preschool along with the most trust-inspiring programs and amenities? Guess which kind of outfit had the organization, the staffing, the experience, and the community reputation that we needed to feel comfortable? You guessed it, our local evangelical Christian church.
NANI?!
If you're a longtime fan of this channel, you know that I carry some religious trauma from growing up queer in Christian churches. And you can probably guess that I have just kind of a general anxiety regarding evangelicals and the kinds of political projects that they're involved in, particularly here in Kentucky. The last place I wanted to send Lilith was a goddamn church. I mean, hell, look at her name. And yet, As it relates to preschool, at least, that church provided a welcoming, nurturing environment with highly experienced staff, thoughtful policies and programs, and because it's not being run for a profit, it was actually really affordable for us. I tell you all that to say this. My family had a need, a pretty basic need. And the community organization that stood ready to meet that need in a way that inspired trust was a church. And not a very progressive church. As a filthy, sexually deviant, soy beta cuck anarcho-communist with pronouns, that kind of bums me out a little bit. Because, at least in my experience, one of the biggest obstacles that communists and anarchists face is the fact that it's so hard for people to believe a better, radically different world is possible. The system isn't working that well for a ton of people, but it's at least a system they know, a system with rules, loopholes, cheat codes, shortcuts, and even sometimes success stories. When radicals come along pointing out flaws in the system, I think a lot of normies will nod their head up until you say, and that's why the system's gotta go. A lot of people just can't visualize a classless, stateless, moneyless society. Hell, I want one, and even I struggle to wrap my mind about what the day-to-day of that looks like. I think radical lefties are at their strongest when they're telling a compelling story and creating an image of the better world that we want to build. I love a good community garden. I love a good community refrigerator or a local pantry where people give and take as circumstances dictate. I love a good tool lending library because not everybody needs their own lawnmower or drill 365 consecutive days out of the year. I love these little peeks into a world not built on hoarding and exploiting and competing, but on cooperation and mutual thriving. And that's what I love about Restaurant to Another World. I love that there's this special place where everyone is welcome with sincere hospitality, where they don't just get a meal, they get to experience flavors that nourish their soul. Western restaurant Nekoya is not just a respite from the cold and the damp, it's a place where everyone from royalty to gladiator slaves to shunned half-demons gets to feel special and loved. And that's why it bums me out a little that one of the only places available in my area to protect the most important person in the world to me is a conservative Christian church. They're a place nourishing my kid, building trust and memories with her, and helping her navigate the world. And don't get me wrong, I am grateful for the attention and the care that they give her. Chapel once a month for somebody who otherwise has no context for Bible stories is a small price to pay for everything else that they have to offer. But I just can't help but think we have food not bombs, why not proletarian preschool? Daycare not drone strikes. Anyone with kids knows childcare is fucking expensive. And who needs reliable, safe, trustworthy childcare the most? Poor families working multiple jobs to survive. You want to talk about a no-brainer for reaching the working class? Helping them protect and grow their kids without compounding their financial hardship? It's a slam dunk. Now, obviously, there are practical obstacles here. There are local regulations, we got to keep abusers out, we got to accommodate people with disabilities, there's insurance and liability to consider. I get it. You can't wake up tomorrow and start Professor Marx's daycare for gifted podcasters in quite the same way that you can wake up tomorrow and start feeding your local unhoused. It's just that as I get older and I enter different life stages, I keep discovering just how many community resources are controlled either by profit seekers or by religious groups who may or may not share my values. The thing that attracts me most to communism and anarchism is the servant's heart that I see in so many of their adherents. A servant's heart that is similar to the same kind that I see in Christian churches, with a key difference. At its best, the left-wing heart for service does not seek converts or dependents. It seeks to liberate anyone and everyone from oppression, poverty, and dehumanization. At its best, I feel like leftism is not seeking to win people over into an in-group. It's seeking to dissolve the in-group, out-group divide and serve everyone because everyone deserves to thrive. To bring it back to Restaurant to Another World, my read of Chef Tenshu's character is that he's someone who does not seek praise, prestige, or profit. He's someone that loves food, someone who cherishes the way a good meal makes you feel, someone who knows that breaking bread together builds loving relationships, and someone who wants to bless anyone walking through his doors with a meal that builds them up, body and soul. And that's the spirit that I see in so many places on the left. For all the infighting, for all the drama, for all the hurt feelings and broken relationships and legitimate fuck-ups, When I look out on that great ragtag rogues gallery on the left out there, I see people who are so passionate about honoring others, about nourishing others, about dignifying others, about healing others, about empowering others, about liberating others. And I just wish we had more infrastructure to do that. It would be an unfair criticism to say, hey, Louisville commies, how's come you don't run a preschool, but my local church that's been here since 1950 can do it? Obviously, the deck is stacked against left-wing projects, both in terms of societal inertia, as well as ongoing systemic obstacles specifically designed to impede collective power. Plus, left-wing ideology is a refuge for the vulnerable, so add poverty, disability, alienation, and exhaustion to the list of complications. So having said all that, I know you're hoping that this is all leading up to my big, brilliant idea. I can anticipate you saying to yourself, well, surely he's not going to end with, I wish the left had more resources, because no shit. He's got to be setting up a revolutionary call to action that's going to change everything. Here it comes. I don't have a big, brilliant idea. I don't have a revolutionary call to action. This topic has just been tickling my brain for a while now, and I don't have a solution. I'm just kind of talking it out with you all and seeing how it goes. I think what's really got me intrigued by this whole thing is actually my sense that the revolution, whatever it is going to be uncinematic, unsexy. It's going to be service-minded. In Restaurant to Another World, Chef Tenshu is seen waking up early in a sparse apartment and then essentially working all day, preparing ingredients, cooking and cleaning, at least until he hires Aletta. He's beloved by his patrons, but whatever that prestige is worth, it doesn't change his day-to-day. He's working and serving. In our own world, service work is treated with indifference, if not outright disdain. People love to speak disparagingly of burger flippers and ditch diggers, or they use the janitor as a counterpoint to important jobs like executives. Service jobs are always treated as a step down from technical or managerial jobs, as something for the uneducated to do, or as a fallback that anyone could do if they fail at something more substantial. But service work is hard. Not only is it hard on a body to be on your feet all day or bending over stocking shelves, especially if you're disabled, but because service work is seen as lesser, service workers are treated as lesser than by members of the public. There's almost no hobby more cherished in the United States than treating a server like your personal serf for an evening at Applebee's. Any man with $20 in his pocket and access to a strip mall can abuse a cashier for 10 minutes and feel like a real big shot. It's the American dream, baby. But beyond the difficulty and the thanklessness, there's something else important to remember about service work. It meets people's daily needs. Cooking, cleaning, organizing, restocking, and yes, childcare are the little mundane building blocks of daily life. When they go smooth, it's a big relief and it helps people take on their day with confidence and energy and focus. And when they go badly, it can compound and spiral and make life more miserable bit by bit, stripping away people's ability to deal with setbacks and frustrations. The needs that service work addresses are needs that we all have, from the poorest of the poor to the wealthy elites. To eat, to have clean clothes and a clean body and a livable living space, to get to places that we need to go, to refresh ourselves with a cup of coffee, to find items we need like groceries or medicine, to live in communities not covered in trash, to have a little fun at a movie or a park, and, if we have children, to have people who can protect them and teach them things. And because this work is so fundamental to our existence, I think it's a large component of building trust in communities. People remember when their neighbors helped shovel snow when they were sick. They remember people who brought them food during lean times or during times of tragedy. They remember people who helped them clean or move or just gave them a ride. These small acts of service can build trust and solidarity. And likewise, communities who fail to show up for each other in these mundane ways often lose trust rapidly. Not through any big breaches, but just through the day-to-day erosion that exhaustion and neglect can cause when it feels like no one has your back. Service work is human work. Or I guess I should say, in the case of our magical anime restaurant, service work is what makes life work. It's not prestigious, it doesn't capture the imagination, it doesn't tickle the creative parts of our brain too often. It's not something we probably fantasize about doing, but it's so often a crucial component to whether we're suffering or thriving. So that's why I say, whatever the revolution is, however and whenever and wherever the new world is striving to be born, it probably is now and is going to continue to be unsexy. I think it's going to involve more brooms, screwdrivers, and spatulas than Kalashnikovs and Molotov cocktails. Some of it might be happening at the firing range and the dojo, but I think a lot more of it is going to be happening in kitchens and in stockrooms and in daycares. And honestly, I don't think this is some big epiphany that no one's ever had before. When you look at the great labor movements throughout history around the world, it's always people in thankless jobs leading the charge, whether that's black washerwomen in Atlanta in 1881, to miners in Appalachia in the 1910s, to rail workers in Argentina in 1918, to ferry workers in Athens in 2022. To put a bow on this, in 1965, labor organizer Larry Itliong called for a strike against grape growers in Delano, California. 1,000 Filipino farm workers walked off the job. When the farm owners tried to replace the Filipino workers with Mexican workers, Itliong got together with Cesar Chavez, who encouraged the Mexican workers to join the strike. After an initial burst of energy, the combination of police violence and financial hardship had caused many of the strikers to either return to work or to take jobs elsewhere and leave the picket line. In order to keep the picketing going and keep the pressure on the owners, Chavez put out the call to left-wing activists in California and recruited through Marxist newspapers. An influx of new activists in 1966 led to the creation of a full-on protest camp for the picketers. This camp had its own medical clinic, but it also had one other service for the activists: a nursery. Anyway, what do you think about all this? Am I overthinking a magical anime restaurant? Does Chef Tenchu reveal himself to be a capitalist pig in the season finale? Or, maybe more relevantly, talk about the service needs that you have in your day-to-day life that you think the left is not addressing very well. Or even better, tell us a success story from your own community about meeting people's needs in an unsexy but pivotal way. Hell, talk about whatever you want down there, just be nice. As always, hit those good buttons that help my videos soar on this beautiful platform. And of course, please share this video with the beastmen and fairies in your own life. Thanks for your time tonight. Hope to see you on the next one. Bon appetit!